there's a atmosphere of loving acceptance and so on, then the child thinks, hey, I must be pretty good. I must be okay.
Everything's good.
Yeah.
I'm okay.
Yeah. But if the parents are stressed, depressed, traumatized, racially challenged, economically challenged, or such terrible things as the children in Gaza are experiencing right now with the daily bombings and all this kind of stuff, what can they think? That there's something wrong with me.
Oh, imagine some kid over there in Gaza looking up and there's a bomb, and they think, man, I'm so horrible, I deserve to be bombed.
Well, you know what? There was a study done of Gazan children.
Man, that's crazy. I hadn't thought about that. Like, really imagine that, though.
There was a study done of children in Palestine 21 years ago. And 95%, this is long before the current horrors, long before October the 7th, long before the aftermath of October the 7th. 95% of those kids showed traumatic symptoms. High percentage wet their beds, like you and I did. They expressed aggression towards their parents. They had panic attacks, anxiety, fears. Can you imagine what's going to happen to that generation
years from now?
Years from now. I mean, it just breaks my heart every day when I think about it. And
for any kids,
I know a lot of my fellow Jews don't agree with me, but as a Jewish person, I'm not the only one who feels that way. It especially breaks my heart.
Yeah.
This is a podcast with Theo and Dr. Gabor Mate. I'm sure many of you might have watched it. I'm sure many of you have not watched it. I personally have not, and this video has been going viral for quite some time. So I'm actually very excited to watch the highlights here with you. And the reason this went viral is because obviously Theo got really emotional in this. And it shows that, if you have a good heart, then people just take it more seriously. So when Theo is upset over the Gazan children, I think it has a bigger effect on his audience. If you enjoy these podcasts where I take a long podcast, condense it into a shorter video so you can watch this, and if you appreciate that, make sure you like this video and subscribe to my channel. We're one of the fastest growing channels on this subject. Do your part. When you like it, the video goes out to a larger audience and more people can see it and we can change more minds. Now let's continue.
When you put it in that sense, that imagine a kid like, because what are they going to think? They don't know. They just think, man, something's so wrong with me. I deserve to be killed.
Yeah.
Or something. I don't know. Yeah.
It depends if the adults are able to hold them and keep them feeling loved. But 19,000 kids have been orphaned. And when I say orphaned, I don't mean just that their parents have died. Their extended families have been wiped out. Yeah. What's going to be the future of those kids? And anyway, it's just a terrible.
No, it's heartbreaking. I mean, it feels like a genocide is going on over there, and you don't know what to do. It's like, I mean, you can pray, you can speak up about it, and I know that there's like a more political aspects of it. And we've had different people come on to talk about Israel and Palestine on here, and it was very knowledgeable for a lot of our listeners because you hear about it a lot, but you don't know the history and everything. But
I've been there. I went there 2.5 years ago to work with Palestinian women tortured in Israeli jails.
Wow.
And they had post-traumatic stress disorder. I've seen it with my own eyes.
And for those that don't know, Dr. Gabor Mate is actually a Holocaust survivor. He was a child during the Holocaust.
And who's the Black American writer, Ta-Nehisi Coates?
Ta-Nehisi Coates?
Yeah. He just written a new book. And he talks about visiting Palestine. And he says, Ta-Nehisi Coates, in his new book, he says, once you go there and see it, you can't unsee it. And
our media doesn't cover it super fairly.
Yeah.
I feel like our media doesn't cover it super fairly. That'd be interesting to speak with him then. Thank you for bringing his name up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's heartbreaking anytime something's happening to a child, That should be the one thing that we can all figure out this shouldn't happen.
No. It's also the truth that it's also happening to kids in Israel. There's bombs and rockets and so on. I don't know if this is the time to go into the politics of it. It's not a question of valuing or sort of esteeming one's suffering over another. We don't compare traumas, but the degree and the scale of suffering in Gaza is unprecedented, you know.
Yeah.
And look,
It seems like it.
when my wife walks into a room, I'm 80. I'm typing away, I'm reading a book. She walks into the room and I don't hear her. All of a sudden I hear her, I go like this. This is the startled response of an infant. If you take a 3-month-old who's sitting there, who's lying there, and you go like this, it's called the startle reflex. That's built into me. Because when I was 3 months of age and throughout my first year, Budapest was being bombed by the Allies.
Wow.
Quite apart from the anti-Semitism and the genocide, there was the war going on. So I'd be thrown into a laundry basket and they'd rush me down to the basement. So when I hear a noise, I still go like this.
Yeah.
Now this is 80 years later.
Or when you see a load of laundry go by,
Yeah.
you know? Man, so we can stay with, so what you're saying is they can stay with you that long.
It can stay with you.
It gets
that long.
locked in you, in your cells, really.
It's actually literally locked into your cells and into your chromosomes.
Yeah, I mean, it's heartbreaking for those children on both sides of that. And just anywhere, anytime you think like, and even a kid, when they think like, even in America, it's like we're bombing each other. Like we can't figure out a way. There's a huge planet here. We can't figure out, how can we not figure out a way that we can live? All God is asking us to do is be alive and do it without war. It seems unreal that we can't figure that out, man.
Well,
It seems unreal.
The great spiritual teachers have been addressing that insanity for thousands of years, you know.
Gabor, how does shame cause us to lose compassion for ourselves?
Let me tell you a story. I mentioned this in The Myth of Normal. After my book on addiction came out, In the Realm of Hungry Ghosts, I got a letter from a guy in Seattle. And he said, I really appreciate your book and showing how trauma causes.
For those that don't know, Dr. Gabor Mate, his focus is in childhood trauma.
Is one of the, not addiction is not the only outcome of trauma, but it's one of the outcomes of trauma, one of the potential outcomes of trauma. And I really appreciate all that. But he says, I can't blame my mother. It's my own fault that I'm a shit. And I thought, oh my God, you poor guy. You still see yourself that way? What lack of compassion. Because if he actually fully understood that he was just a baby at some point, needing and wanting to be loved and held and seen and valued just for being a human being. And that didn't happen to him. And that caused so much pain in him that he escaped into some drug addiction. He's not a shit. He's just a hurt human being.
Yeah.
But that lack of self-compassion, I see it all the time in my workshops when I do therapy work with people. One of my main tasks is to help them to notice, not to criticize them for it, but to help them to be aware of how they lack compassion for themselves.
Yeah.
And
it's hard to even notice that you're getting in the shame circle. It's so hard to even notice that you're in it. You could be living in the center of it.
Yeah.
You know, that's how I was with self-pity. I was living it. I just didn't realize it. And the self-pity was manifesting itself like, oh, you can figure this out, you know? But by trying to constantly help myself figure it out, all I was doing was focusing on my own being not good enough.
Yeah.
Which in a way is really just self-pity.
But it's also lack of self-compassion.
Yeah. Not giving myself some grace. I remember the first time somebody said, hey man, give yourself some grace. I'd never even, I was like, wow.
Because
can you notice characteristics or actualities in your life today that you can directly correlate to side effects of childhood trauma?
My own?
Yeah.
My capacity to get triggered. But see, and triggered is an interesting word because we keep using it. But what does it mean? Well, it means a reaction that's way out of proportion to the actual stimulus.
Yeah.
Now, when you actually look at where the metaphor comes from a gun. Now, how big a part of the gun is the trigger? Small little part. What makes the trigger work is that there's ammunition and explosive charge. So as long as I'm full of explosive charge, which is my unresolved trauma, somebody will say boo and I'll go, ooh, you know. So my capacity to get triggered, my difficulty believing that I was really loved and accepted in my marriage relationship, even though I was.
Wow.
You know, my tendency to blame others for my own reactions rather than taking responsibility.
In there.
We mentioned the addictive behaviors. Certainly, the first book I wrote in ADHD is called Scattered Minds. My scattered mind is certainly an outcome of early stress, because I mean, that dissociation, that tuning out is just an escape mechanism. You know, so the way I was unable to see my kids for the beautiful, sensitive creatures that they were, you know, in my workaholism.
For those that also don't know, Aaron Mate, you've probably seen him, is also a pro-Palestine activist. He's on Piers Morgan several times. He's actually his son.
Oh, it's shown up in so many ways.
You said that not believing that people love us.
Yeah.
Dude, that's huge, man.
Yeah.
What is that? Why does that? Why do we sometimes, you'll be in a marriage, in a relationship, and we'll still believe that person, they don't love me, or we won't believe their affections. What did you say?
Yeah, we won't believe we're loved, you know, or accepted. Well, Peter Levine, who's one of the great trauma teachers, he talked about trauma being the tyranny of the past. So
the attorney of the past?
The tyranny.
The tyranny of the past.
So we're in the present moment, but we're actually reacting to the past. Now, throughout the first year of my life, given our situation, my mother was really stressed, unhappy, even terrorized.
Wow, this was a podcast that I was excited to watch because of the whole Israel-Palestine conflict. I didn't realize there was going to be all of this trauma information in here either, which is very interesting. I'm actually really happy I'm watching this. And if you are too, if you appreciate this, make sure you like this video and subscribe to my channel. If you really want to help support the channel, become a member. It's only $2.99 a month, and it really helps with the revenue. A lot of the videos do get demonetized. The link will be in the description below. Thanks.
She couldn't give me that calm, attuned, loving attention that I needed. She did her best, for God's sakes. You know, what could be greater love than for a 24-year-old young woman to give her baby to a total stranger in the street, you know? But how do I experience it? I experience it as a rejection.
Right.
So the person that ought to be loving me is giving me away. I can only conclude from that I'm not lovable.
Ah, I see.
Now, once I don't think I'm lovable, I'm not going to believe that anybody actually loves me, no matter what they manifest or what they show me.
Yeah.
You know, and then I'm blaming them for my own sense of unlovability. Now, this is unprocessed trauma we're talking about.
100%.
You know, growing up in Hungary, in Eastern Europe, and I lived there until I was 13, there's a lot of anti-Semitism. And my grandparents had died in Auschwitz. I almost died as an infant. My mother, my father.
That's when your mother gave you to someone else to save you?
That's right, yeah.
Wow.
When I was 11 months of age. But even after the war, there was anti-Semitism. And so I'd feel ashamed of being Jewish. I don't anymore, but I did as a kid. So I would kind of, then I was ashamed of my Jewish looks.
Oh, so you have to hide, or you have to feel like, yeah,
there's something different about me that isn't quite right. And, you know, there was a lot of anti-Semitism and taunting in the school that I went to, you know, when I look back on it now. So, yeah, and then I developed body shame. You know, to this day, it's interesting. But every day I judge aspects of my body.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like this is not big enough, or this is too big, or whatever, you know.
Yeah, this is too big.
Yeah. So shame But shame, nobody's born with shame.
Theo Von can literally have a conversation with anyone, man.
Think we can get out of this toxic culture, Gabor? Do you feel like there's a way out of where we are, or do you feel like that humanity is just?
I believe in human beings.
That's a great statement. I do too.
I believe that there's an essential goodness there, a desire to connect, a desire to belong, a desire to celebrate life. I think we're endowed with those capacities. And as difficult as things may look, and especially these days with this terrible wars going on and the suffering that we've talked about, I still believe that there's so many examples. Everywhere I go, I meet such good people. People are trying to make a difference. People are trying to do their little bit or their big bit to reduce the suffering in the world, to speak the truth, to offer some love, compassion to the world. I really do believe in humans. No, we have the potential to be monsters. We have the potential to be angels. But that good side never totally disappears. Some people, it's covered over so much that they might never get in touch with it. Most people, I think, are quite capable of getting there once they decide that they want to.